I've long been fascinated by people who fake illnesses because it's such a complicated mashup of psychological disorders, real physical issues, medical neglect, marginalization, just a big mishmash of things that I weirdly enjoy thinking about. And I've talked in the past about how chronic Lyme isn't really a thing, despite thousands of people thinking they have it, and a small industry of quacks who are willing to sell treatments for it at quite the profit. Chronic Lyme has all of those attributes I just mentioned. You know, there's a huge psychological component, but also many of the physical symptoms people experience, I'm sure, are quite real. And, you know, these people are most often women who have a tendency to be disbelieved and dismissed by medical practitioners. And I've often wondered if there is a social aspect as well. As an enjoyer of garbage television, I was very interested in the story of Yolanda Hadid, the wealthy mother of Gigi and Bella Hadid, the famous models. On Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Yolanda became notorious for speaking out about her chronic Lyme disease, which she claimed also spread to her kids. How does a fake disease spread? And if it can spread to her kids, could it also spread to the huge audience that watched her on Real Housewives? Researchers have noticed a burgeoning number of chronic Lyme patients springing up over the years, particularly in parts of the country where there are no ticks that even cause Lyme. And a lot of it seems to be, like in Yolanda's case, parents who are pushing this diagnosis on their children. But fake illnesses can also be spread from peer to peer, as detailed in a new study out of Germany called Stop That. It's not Tourette's, but a new type of mass sociogenic illness. That's right, Tourette's. A very real illness caused by a faulty nervous system, resulting in uncontrollable acts like tics, like repetitive jerky movements or vocalizations. Tourette's can be absolutely debilitating for a small minority of people who have it, interfering with their day-to-day life and continuing on through adulthood. For most people, though, the tics are minor and the casual observer may not even notice them. YouTuber Ethan Klein is a prominent example of someone who has tics, eyebrow bouncing, that most people would probably just dismiss as a weird habit. But Ethan has come out and said that, yes, he has Tourette's. Sometimes these tics do persist throughout a person's entire life. Sometimes they disappear, especially as adolescents enter into adulthood. There's also no easy test to diagnose Tourette's, so it often goes under the radar. So we have a disorder that presents in a variety of ways that can't always be easily diagnosed, that can be quite attention-grabbing, and is experienced by at least one prominent YouTube star. That is a recipe for disaster. Over on TikTok, Evie Meg found viral fame by showing her Tourette's tics while trying to do simple tasks like pouring cereal. Meg is part of a larger trend of people with disabilities who get wildly popular on social media, and they are using it to destigmatize conditions that were previously mocked or only spoken of in hushed tones or feared or not even known about. So that is an absolute good thing, both for the people who are running these types of accounts and for others who are suffering from these conditions who might be looking for help, or they might just want to feel less alone. Unfortunately, when all of this happens on social media, it can come at a cost. Impressionable teens will see someone getting rewarded with popularity, attention, and sometimes money, and they may think, maybe I can do that too. Maybe they even genuinely think that they have these certain disorders. All of the rewards with little to none of the actual pain, discomfort, and inconvenience of a real disability. That's what psychiatrist Dr. Kirsten R. Mueller-Wahl noticed was happening at her clinic in Germany, where sometime in 2020, she realized they were getting an influx of adolescents and teens claiming to have Tourette's when, according to her, they obviously didn't. This coincided with the viral fame of Jan Zimmerman, a man who claimed to have Tourette's, and after launching his YouTube channel in 2019, he quickly became one of Germany's biggest social media stars. Mueller-Wahl points out that Tourette's specialists can pretty easily distinguish the difference between actual tics and functional behaviors that are done on purpose. She says that Zimmerman clearly does have mild Tourette's, but he then supplements that with, and I quote, exclamations of long sentences with insults, swear words, and obscenities that are in this form unknown in Tourette syndrome. Furthermore, the number of symptoms, and in particular the number of different swear words and insults presented, is countless and thus far beyond that of tics in Tourette syndrome. Finally, presented symptoms quickly change nearly on a weekly basis in parallel to newly released videos, while most popular symptoms are repeated several times. Sure enough, the adolescents and teens that came flooding into doctors' offices in Germany had tics that were not just similar to Zimmerman's, but sometimes exactly the same, like shouting the German equivalent phrases for French fries or flying sharks alongside such edgy things as Hail Hitler. They also performed bizarre and complex behaviors such as throwing pens at school and dishes at home and crushing eggs in the kitchen. She says that the teens also changed their tone of voice when unintentionally shouting things during tics. They also obviously used their condition to get out of chores that they didn't want to do, and their tics disappeared when they were doing something they did want to do. And they were completely cured once the doctor explained that they didn't actually have Tourette's. Mueller-Wahl points out that while half of her fake Tourette's patients were female, Canadian researchers reported a 9-to-1 ratio in favor of girls. The main difference between Germany and Canada? The viral English-speaking star in Canada was Evie Meg, a girl. Mueller-Wahl says that this falls under mass sociogenic or psychogenic illness, aka mass hysteria, which I guess we don't really use anymore because hysteria, uterus, little sexist. But it's an absolutely fascinating condition that can take on a lot of different forms. For instance, the dancing plague of 1518, in which hundreds of people in what's now modern-day France danced their asses off for several days, some of whom may have died from it. Contemporaneous reports are conflicting on that point, probably because everyone was too busy dancing to take notes. This stuff has also happened in modern times, like with the Tanganyika laughing epidemic of 1962, in which 3 girls started laughing, and soon nearly 100 kids in school were yucking it up without it dying down for another year and a half. The difference between those examples and this new Tourette's epidemic is that the disorder spreads through indirect contact amongst people who have never even met. You know, these kids don't personally know Evie Meg or Jan Zimmerman, but they caught their disorder anyway via social media. Hence, Mueller-Wahl proposes a new term, mass social media-induced illness. Thanks to social media, the problem can spread further and easily cross borders, especially once a new group of Tourette's sufferers also then hops on social media to show off their tics, exposing more people to the hysteria. The situation is made all the worse by COVID, forcing millions of kids to sit inside all day looking at social media and feeling intense anxiety. Experts seem to agree that for all of these previous mass sociogenic illnesses, stress was a primary motivator. France in 1518, life was not a picnic then. Starvation and disease were rampant, which is also probably why there were 7 other dancing plagues during the medieval ages. And those kids in what would later become Tanzania in 1962 were experiencing the first year of their country's independence, marrying modern ideas and potential with conservative elders and expectations. So, yeah, the French had their dancers, the Tanzanians had their laughers, and we have our TikTokers with tics. Not quite as fun, I guess. And the downside is that All the good being done by people with real disabilities sharing information about their lives is now going to be offset by fakers doing silly, stereotypical imitations and spreading an unrealistic, false picture of what it's like to live with these diseases. Worse, there are well-meaning people trying to call out the fakers, like those on a subreddit called Illness Fakers, which will inevitably lead to people being suspicious of those who actually have a disorder. And in some cases, people with a real disorder might end up getting harassed. You know, many disorders are invisible or unpredictable. And in general, we don't want to reach a point where we're forcing people to prove that they have some disability before we'll give them our attention or sympathy or seat on the bus. At the same time, we don't want to elevate someone who is knowingly or not faking a disability because of the obvious harm that causes. So there aren't any easy answers here, unfortunately. It's just all around sad. I recommend you stay skeptical, but remember that while a psychiatrist who specializes in the disorder may be able to easily tell a real tic from a fake one, a real disorder from a fake disorder, you can't. Also remember that even a fake disorder also usually has a real underlying problem, and psychological problems are just as real as physical problems. So be nice.